Wow, in the picks and bans, this is really interesting to see. We thought that they're going to ban out the Lee Sin. They banned out Twisted Fate instead.
Yeah, and I mean, Twisted Fate did so much work on them. That was a serious concern. If they can't respond to it, then, you know, that's just going to be devastating again. So get rid of it on a Big Fat. It was clearly one of his strongest champions, but there are a number of strong champions left. Diana was banned out from CLG, and they first picked that Nunu. That gives them a couple of options because, one, Lee Sin is still open. So, you know, they actually decided to grab the Nunu over the Lee Sin. But two, we've seen Chauster jungle Nunu a lot. So they could either do support Nunu or jungle. Either way, it's going to be really strong for their team.
And then Fnatic does immediately snatch up that Lee Sin. They don't want that happening. So it's actually going to probably be Lee Sin top lane and another Cyanide on Cho'Gath in the jungle. Though they could still potentially switch that up, but I feel like Cyanide's more comfortable on his Cho'Gath than he is on his Lee Sin.
Yeah, so I mean, I think part of it is that, and we've seen Soaz actually play Lee Sin. That was against Azubu Blaze. They had Lee Sin in the top lane on Soaz, and that was a really strong pick for them. They were able to get a lot of early kills early on, which is kind of surprising. We haven't seen Lee Sin top in a while, but it's still really strong. There's the Caitlyn pick, so it is going to be a support Nunu, and that Caitlyn-Nunu combo, you know, I talked with them, and Logodogo's like, yeah, you know, double if he's too thick-headed. He says he refuses to play Caitlyn with anyone but support Nunu. But when they have the two of them together like that, it is absolutely brutal.
It really is, because it completely makes up for the lack of a steroid on Caitlyn by giving her that blood boil. She becomes absolutely insane from like out of the gate at level 1. On the other side, though, they've left Shen open for Hotshot, and last game, they had difficulty dealing with the CLG.NA kind of split pushing, yet still aggressive tactics. They banned out Twisted Fate. They're not going to let Hotshot's not taking the Galio now. So we're going to have to see, are they going to be playing a same kind of similar split push strategy but being more defensive? Because Shen's ultimate, it's not really initiation like Galio's ultimate was. It's going to be the, we can set up a gank, we could turn a gank around, or we could save our carry in a team fight kind of style. Well,
and Shen is one of Hotshot's stronger champions. Shen is a very aggressive champion early on in the lane and can bully people out. That's something that Galio couldn't do. Galio would win them team fights later on, but Shen can actually win his lane and then, you know, teleport in for the backup. So we'll see what's going on there. Fnatic, though, going with an aggressive bottom lane. They switch up to the Ezreal, they go with the Leona, so not playing Vayne versus CLG. That's really interesting to me, considering those were, you know, the Vayne pick was what won them the games against TPA to an extent. First game, a lot of it was won by Katarina coming out and winning that team fight, and they still have Katarina open, so, you know, that is a possibility, but really interesting. And actually, that would work very well with the AoE that Fnatic has set up right now.
It almost seems like that Fnatic thinks they have to win that bottom lane away from CLG. They are going with the Leona-Ezreal combination.
Maybe they're just concerned that CLG won't give them an opportunity to even, you know, get any farm on Vayne. And that's what we saw in the last game. You know, CLG didn't give them that opportunity.
And I think CLG, they're anticipating this now. There's going to be Shen on Hotshot who can split push, and they're going to play defensively naturally. What's going to complement away a team that's going to want to sit back and farm and play defensively, defend against the enemy team taking towers and objectives? Anivia. So they wound up picking this one up for Big Fat LP. He's a great Anivia player as well. On top of this, they're going with Olaf, so we're still going to be able to have a jungler who can go in and take away the Cho'Gath farm, take away the enemy jungle, and he could still roam around very effectively and have that denial of vision on the Fnatic. But we're probably going to see a different kind of stylization from CLG this game, whereas they used it to be super aggressive and take away objectives and take away towers and push those lanes against Fnatic. Now you're going to see it being more, they're still going to take some objectives probably like the dragon area, but they're going to be doing it more defensively to be heads up so they don't get caught out of position.
And there's the Katarina pick. I kind of expected it to come because it's definitely one of XPK's stronger champions, and it combos very well with their AoE team. Not only that, we've seen actually M5 play a lot of Katarina and Lee Sin combos in that mid lane. So when Lee Sin, he's being very aggressive in the jungle, Katarina can join with him, and they can slowly poke down their opponents. They like sit on the outside, they use their mobility to not like dive in immediately. And then when they have the right opportunity, boom, you turn it around, you pick up a couple of quick kills. So that can be very strong. I'm sorry, it is Lee Sin in the top, but still, Katarina, definitely a strong pickup for them. It did win them that game 1 against TPA, but we'll see what CLG can do. And you're absolutely right. Their team, CLG's team this game, it's a much more defensive-oriented team, but it's a very strong reflexive team. Olaf, he has such fast wave clearing and whatnot, he's going to be able to command control of the jungle. And then when Soaz, if Soaz is trying, or if Cyanide is trying to do anything aggressive, then Chauster can, you know, beat him in that matchup. Olaf's a little bit stronger in the jungle than Cho'Gath is. Cho'Gath's very safe though, but all of CLG's lanes are very safe lanes. Anivia can stall off any aggression from Fnatic, but they can also put on pressure. You know, with that Caitlyn, if they take early advantages, it's a very similar team to what we've seen from TPA actually. You know, with the Shen and with the Anivia, you know, we'll see if Big Fat actually leaves the lane some as Anivia, because that's what we've seen some from Toys. If like the enemy team ever goes for a push or a fight ever, he can leave that lane and then win the lane just with how strong CLG or how strong Anivia is with all of her base stats.
I'm really perplexed here. I saw Soaz change that patrol promote in the top lane on Lee Sin to a teleport at the last second. Hotshot's running Ghost and Flash on Shen. He's not running Ignite to be aggressive. He's not running the teleport to be omnipresent on the map between that and his Stand United. He's running the Ghost. It makes me think that CLG is going to go more passive style, more split pushing, because he wants to be able to get away safely.
You can't kill a Shen with Ghost. It used to be that you would run Ghost and like Exhaust or anything else, but Ghost Flash, you cannot chase him down. Like, it's not going to happen once he gets tanky enough. And that really, he's not going to have a backup teleport from his ultimate, but it's going to make his split push very, very strong, because he can be very aggressive, and he can make plays and not have to worry about the enemy team catching him out of position, because he's going to be able to escape no matter what. And then the Ghost, we've seen in the past, they send someone to deal with Shen, and they want to chase him down and not allow him to teleport. Well, the Ghost lets him get just out of range, so that then he can teleport back into his team.
Not to mention the fact that if he is able to Ghost and Flash away, he's going to be wasting a lot of time if Fnatic decides to go up and deal with this, which is going to let his team, of course, go and push other objectives or other lanes on the map. However, if they decide not to deal with Hotshot because they know that they can't catch him, he's just going to take the lane for himself. So it's already putting Fnatic, in this predicament where now they see that the Flash and Ghost is up. They know that Shen's going to be an issue, and how are they going to deal with it in the early stages of the game to make sure he doesn't reach a point where they can't kill him first?
Yeah, that's going to be really scary. If Hotshot gets an early lead there, he could bully around Soaz in that lane. But Lee Sin, it really is a cool skill matchup. And neither of them going with aggressive summoners. It means that there's no disadvantage in the lane there. Sometimes you see the teleport and there's going to be a disadvantage. But we'll see what either of them can do and how strong Lee Sin's or Soaz's Lee Sin can be. But
well, hopefully we don't have another remake and that it is supposed to be a Flash Ghost, because that'd be really awesome.
Yeah, no, that's definitely going to be cool. I'm expecting the Flash Ghost. I mean, like we said, it has a number of advantages. And if Hotshot's not looking for kills early on, if they're just looking to, farm their lanes and then win small skirmishes primarily with the bot lane, then he doesn't need Ignite or anything. He doesn't need to pick up those kills. But we'll see what they can do.
And Fnatic, as I said, they're going to have to do something to try to counteract the fact that, okay, they know Hotshot's on Shen, they know his summoners, and they know his play style on Shen is that split push kind of style. He's going to be really hard to take out in lane. How are they going to respond to this in the early game? Well, let's take a look at their lineup. They have the Katarina and they have the Cho'Gath to initiate fights, or have the initiation and then the Katarina to come in after the initiation is gone. They have the Leona ultimate available, and they have a Lee Sin who can dive in. How are they going to control the map in the earlier stage of the game before people start grouping up for those dragon fights and those team fights? Katarina's going to be able to roam around the map, whereas Anivia, she's not going to be able to do so as easily as Katarina can. We're going to have to see, are they going to get that lockdown on the bottom lane and have Katarina roam down there, or are they going to try to set something up with Lee Sin teleports in bot lane, or is Katarina going to roam to the top of the map? CLG is going to have to, Chouster once again, going to have to be very, very diligent with his warding in order to keep tabs on where Xpeke is going to be and where Soaz is, so CLG.NA can play that defensive style.
And here's something that I think is going to be really scary for this. There's actually a remake on the game, so I'm going to get back into this in a second. But one thing that I'm realizing with CLG's team, I think they're going to go for an aggressive pushing style again. Like, we've talked about how their team is pretty defensive, but you know that Caitlyn and Nunu, it's a very aggressive bottom lane. It's very aggressive for pushing. Well, Olaf, as a jungler, he's one of the strongest junglers in the game at pushing down early turrets. He applies a lot of pressure on turrets because he has such great wave clearing capabilities, and then he also does a lot of damage. So Olaf, we've seen it from Azubu plays before. We've seen it from a number of people before. As a jungler, he's incredible at pushing down turrets. So you consider, all right, they have two great wave pushers. Then they also have Shen, who has his global presence, and Anivia, who can shut down lanes. And I was talking with someone about this earlier, that I want to see a team run Anivia just to shut down side pushing. And what I think CLG is going to do is they're going to try and push aggressively with Double Lift, with Loco Doco, and with Chouster. And then if Fnatic, if they try and counter push, so like if CLG's pushing bot, Fnatic, we saw some in the past, they would counter push mid or counter push top or something like that. Big Fat can go into that lane and completely shut it down because you cannot push against an Anivia. He can 4v1 the enemy team, and that means that the effective push from CLG, there's going to be no consequences for it unless Fnatic is able to counterpush them, or unless they're able to force a fight and initiate against them. That's one of the benefits of the Leona. Leona can force a fight so that CLG can't escape, but they don't have the same wave clearing potential that they had in the previous game, and that means that CLG could take some early towers.
We're going to have to see, do they use their wave clearing from CLG offensively, which would be really, really good to see. And indicative of last game, it could be true. They could potentially just go in and get these towers down, but they have the plan to fall back on where, with a aggressive roaming Katarina, with the potential, as you said, for Leona, as well as Cho'Gath to initiate these engagements, where Lee Sin could actually be pretty proactive on the map as well, especially running that teleport out of top lane. We'll have to see, does CLG get aggressive, and if it doesn't work, are they just going to fall back on it, and are they just going to be in that defensive state, very similar to the old CLG we used to see, or are they going to continue to try to be aggressive, which, if they do try to be aggressive and Fnatic's able to shut it down by forcing those fights you were talking about, that's the snowball they need in order to continue on into the game in a advantageous position. They need that Katarina snowball to get rolling. If Xpeke can get a couple of those kills or force a fight where CLG tries to be too aggressive and they are unable to be so just because they're not farmed up enough yet, or Fnatic has better positioning advantage in the game, then that Katarina snowball is going to get going. She's going to be able to be even more proactive on the map than she will be just as a champion in general. And then it's going to be really hard for CLG to secure themselves into that pushing strategy. And if they get into another team fight, well, they're going to be a little bit more scared to be aggressive because all of a sudden Katarina is going to be really beefy. And we all know what happens when Katarina gets fed.
Yeah, no, it's Katarina. If Katarina can pick up some early kills and the AoE and whatnot, the damage that they have, it will allow that. I mean, Ezreal works very well with that because you get the Leona ult in, you Ezreal ult in. I think a lot of people underestimate the Ezreal damage sometimes from his ultimate as opposed to his auto attacks. It opens up the possibility of that Katarina, and if Katarina gets any early kills, that could snowball it for them. But we'll just be in this game shortly. Everyone is here. Everyone's ready. They're waiting to take a look at this game. My keyboard actually isn't working, so I'm going to just figure this out real quick, and we can get into this game.
They're having a riveting conversation about how loud World Elite is right now, and it's definitely a very funny thing in the lobby. But both these teams, you can see, they're bantering back and forth. They're talking to one another. They're having a good time. And, I mean, at IPL 5, who isn't having a good time? We've had amazing matches. The venue is absolutely awesome. And we're in Vegas. Who the heck doesn't love being in Vegas? So all the teams in high spirits, despite the fact that Fnatic actually came into a loss last game, well, you know, they're still in high hopes. They're still in high spirits. And I see you furiously tapping away on a keyboard that it's not working, and we're trying to tell these teams that we want to go, we want to get ready, but we don't have a way to do so. So I think have we gotten something?
I'm actually just going to call someone on my phone and tell them to manually, or just like walk up and tell them we're ready. So we'll be in a second.
All right, so we're going to get Nick Allen on the case, and he's going to be able to persuade Fnatic and CLG just through booty short charades, I think. But regardless of the fact, this is the last chance for Fnatic in this tournament, or not the last chance for Fnatic, but this is the last chance for Fnatic to stay in that winner's bracket and have that security blanket for when they get into the semifinal against potentially World Elite or CLG EU, whose first match just got underway on the main stage not that long ago. So if you guys want to check that one out, or double monitor it, of course, because you want to watch all the games here at IPL 5, please feel free to do so. But CLG.NA, Fnatic, both these teams actually came into the tournament. Fnatic came in here because Alternate was unable to do so, and it looks like we actually got the game going underway. CLG.NA came into this tournament, and not a lot of people were expecting them to be, you know, they're expecting them maybe the top NA team, but no one was really expecting anything out of the North American teams, and it's really cool to see Fnatic, when the European teams came in as the replacement, not necessarily the best team in Europe, and CLG.NA, who everybody didn't really have the highest of hopes for, considering they are from the North American scene, which has been a little bit weak recently. This is what, the winners semifinals now?
Yeah, this is the winners semifinals. So it's pretty that's correct, I believe. So really deep in the tournament. It's really exciting to see, you know, both CLG and Curse.NA doing so well in this tournament. But we'll see. CLG, they've looked very strong so far. They've shown really great synergy as a team. Like, I mean, it's not just the fact that Doublelift and Chalster are making plays and winning them the game. I mean, that helps a lot. You know, it's a big part of their team is the fact that Doublelift and Chalster are, you know, just miles ahead. But they're doing a lot of cool things together as a team. It's, you know, Big Fet joining with the team, and, you know, Hotshot working that other lane. So it's, you know, things that they're doing together as a team. So we'll see what Fnatic can do to counter that out. You know, any early advantage would definitely win it for them. They have a really strong early game team, and that could be really scary if they can get an early advantage against CLG. But even if they do, CLG could just stall and, you know, slowly wait until they have an opportunity to win the game. I'm
a little upset now. I'm seeing that Hotshot GG, after we talked about how important the Ghost Flash is going to be, he's running Ignite Ghost.
And we said, yeah, like Ghost Ignite or Ghost Exhaust was more common because you can get more kills. But even with the Ghost,
now it's Flash.
So that means that he is going aggressive. So Flash and Ignite, as opposed to running the Ghost. Ghost is more defensive, and it's like you just want to split push and no one ever touches you. But the Flash Ignite is basically the standard build that everyone does, and it's looking for kills. And I'm curious if he originally intended to run Ghost and Flash, but because they showed it to the enemy team, that he just like decided to switch it up last second and see if maybe, you know, it affected anything.
Well, this is a little bit more indicative of that aggressive kind of pushing strategy. If he's going to be able to flash and as well as have the taunt available, he's going to ignite, and they're potentially going to want to get in these team engages rather than disengage in these team fights. It is more telling of okay, we're going to use that Anivia Glacial Storm not to keep you off our tower, but to keep the waves pushing and keep you off of your own tower, as Doublelift with that Caitlyn and Locodoco on Nunu wail away from the back with the tower. Of course, Chalster's going to be able to push and clear waves very well. There's Undertow as well. Hotshot can just teleport in with this Stand United, taunt and ignite the target that's trying to run away. He could chase after, or ignite the low target that's running away, stay in the fight, and make sure they get those objectives.
Well, they have really quick burst damage as a team. And they have, you know, great kiting potential and great survivability. So it's kind of like they're the aggressors in all situations, and you know, Fnatic just has to deal with it. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what's going to happen. I think one concern for me is N-Rated is playing Leona. And we've talked about how Leona can be a really aggressive champion and can set up these really cool fights for him. We haven't talked about Leona in the laning phase. And N-Rated, he's played a lot of Leona in the past. Back when he was with Against All Authority, that was his main champion. You know, transitioning into more champions, and Lulu being his #1. Now Doublelift walking right into him. He sees them out, walks out of there, doesn't have to use a flash or anything. He's perfectly safe. But Leona as a champion is very weak in the lane. Like, if you can pick up a kill, that's great. But Doublelift and Nunu, that's a very difficult lane. Or Caitlyn and Nunu, that's a very difficult lane to pick up a kill against. And if you can't get those kills, if you fall behind at all, then she has no lane presence at all. And we've seen in the past, N-Rated, I mean, one of the reasons that Reckless and N-Rated sometimes lose that bot lane, they're very strong at getting kills. They're very strong in fights. Like, N-Rated is a great support once it comes to team fights and picking people off and whatnot. But they are kind of a little bit weak as far as that lane presence, and, you know, being able to you know, just tank small harass damage. And Nunu has that lane presence. N-Rated really doesn't on that Lulu. So that's or that Leona. So that actually opens up the possibility that CLG gets an early lane advantage, and that could just, you know, maybe shut down that bottom lane and prevent some of that aggression from Fnatic.
I think the one thing you had to keep an eye on is with Caitlyn in the lane, the best part about Caitlyn is she's going to be able to stay safe and stay back from a range, and she's going to be able to attack minion waves from the way where N-Rated's going to have to really get up close and personal in order to try to land one of the Zenith Blades into a stun combination. However, at the same time, if Doublelift gets caught out of position, which Doublelift sometimes tends to do, N-Rated on Leona is going to be able to jump on him, stun him, get the damage down, and Ezreal's going to be able to follow up and deal a lot of burst damage, and Caitlyn could be in a bad spot.
Man.
So.
And they have the ward, so actually trying to poke them over the tower. Fnatic, they are able to get that steal, but Reckless takes a little bit of damage. Not that much, you know, it's just a minor thing, but it's just kind of cool to see, you know, Caitlyn's attack range getting him over there. So they're actually, it gives them a little bit of experience. Caitlyn and Nunu, they're still a little bit ahead. You see how far ahead they are actually with those golems, almost level 2 already. But the steal, it does shut down Olaf a little bit, or it does sometimes, but not when Chalster's going to be coming in for the steal. And so as he actually went for the race as well. So he went for the race for an early level advantage top, and that actually is kind of interesting because it also means that he's a little scared of CLG potentially. So he's not laning against Hotshot right now, he's not laning against Chalster out of the jungle. because maybe, you know, he's concerned about any early advantages that they would have. And so he's just going back, and now that the minions are pushed back to his turret, he's going to be safe there.
We saw Chester
he actually used his teleport too, so he wouldn't miss out on that farm.
So Chester we saw actually going in for an invade on the red buff from Cyanide here. Katarina came up from the mid lane, expected doing a good job. As soon as we saw Katarina missing, Chester went back. Now Hotshot's come down here. Cyanide's still only level 1 because he was sharing the experience with his team on that red steal. So Olaf and Shen potentially have an advantage, and Nivea doing a good job trying to zone out Katarina. But with Lee Sin coming into the fray, getting all that farm because of the teleport, he has also hit level 2. So
there's the E from N-rated jumping onto Double F, gets a lot of damage really early on, and that is exactly what you want to do as Leona. So really great harass there, but then Double Lift as they're running away, it's like the sad long walk, you know, after you go to a party, and they chase them down, get some nice damage there, healing up pretty nicely. But that's actually really great, you know, presence from N-rated. That's what they need to do. The only issue is as it progresses, if they can't catch Double Lift in those situations, then, you know, it could start to fall away from them. But we'll see what they do. They held on to their red, which is very important. Chalster trying to take that, but it doesn't put Cyanide behind, because Cyanide, if they had taken that red, he would have been 2 levels behind Olaf, and that would have given Chalster free reign over the jungle.
He is still 1 level behind Olaf, so Chester comes out with a slight advantage in this case, but as you said, it's not nearly as monumental as it could have been had they stolen away that red buff. Ooh, something going on in the top lane, it looks like, actually, is Soaz going to be diving into the Hotshot GG. Hotshot, though, getting back near his tower, and Soaz bullying him out of lane right here.
Yeah, but he's at a disadvantage because of the teleport versus the ignite, so Hotshot has a little bit more damage. Chalster coming in, they have no vision of him here. Leona, one of the weaknesses is she doesn't have an escape ability, so if they can bait in the Zenith Blade from Leona, then they could follow it up with a kill. And I think partially, Chalster, he recognizes their lane's comfortable bot. He just wants to sit there and see if Cho'Gath is coming. So not looking for a gank, he doesn't even show himself. So he probably could have gotten a little bit of damage if he had run out, but it wouldn't have been that significant. But what not showing himself does is it, you know, gives him a little vision advantage, though he is spotted by this Wraith here.
And the one thing is, though, by Leona having to play aggressively, starting with those boots and only 2 wards, she used them already by warding at the enemy jungle and warding other places, so they're actually completely blind down in that bottom lane. So Chalster putting pressure on Olaf. He's also kind of checking for wards to see what they're going to be doing there, but we saw no reaction from Reckless and N-rated there, so Olaf probably knows there's no wards going on. They know that they're going to be safe. We already have a ward from CLG.NA in the bottom lane, so they know if Cho'Gath's going to be coming down into the lane, and this could potentially be something that Olaf's going to recognize later on in the future. So if Cho'Gath puts pressure on the bottom lane, he knows that there's no wards until they go back.
And I was actually realizing Lee Sin, so as with the early back, he was actually able to get a Thorns, which makes him strong in the lane. Quick taunts and quick damage, but he gets out of there very easily, and that's one of the strengths of Lee Sin. We saw that all the time with Voyboy when he was playing Lee Sin, and like in Hanover, he would just get himself out of position, kind of. He would be playing really aggressively, but he would be able to escape very easily. Now Chalster and Hotshot, they're hanging out in the top, but XPK kind of peeking out a little bit, but not going to engage on them. They take the Golem, so get a little bit of an advantage, and then Hotshot, teleport canceled. Get rid of that little Golem there, and he'll be able to go back.
Meanwhile, in bottom lane, we saw Cho'Gath make a quick little visit. He had dropped off a ward in that Tri-Brush, so they are going to have a little bit of vision in case Chalster wants to come back around. So doing a good job of recognizing the weakness of that bottom lane, knowing that they were pushing a little bit aggressively. They've gotten back as well, so Leona's picked up a Fall Farm in addition to some extra wards. They're going to be rather well protected down there, and I think Chalster's just going to recognize the fact that, okay, I'm Olaf, I'm really, really good. We counter jungling as well as controlling my jungle and the enemy's jungle. Cho'Gath, as you mentioned in the previous game, is also a very strong control jungler. Chalster's trying to take some of that away. We saw the early red buff invade. We saw them in the top lane going after those double golems. He goes back, picks up his own golems. He's going to have the smite available when he gets back from base. Could potentially see him run directly into the jungle once Cho'Gath shows his face and try to take something away.
Yeah, and we've seen so far he does have a slight advantage over Cho'Gath just because of how fast of a jungler Olaf is. So, you know, that's going to be huge. And that having such a strong jungler, it protects the blue for Anivia, which is going to be coming up shortly. And so that's going to be really key, almost taking down XPK. And now that Anivia is level 6, that's when the harass happens. So Katarina versus Anivia, it can be a skill matchup, but it's in Anivia's favor. But Katarina, she wants to bait out the Flash Frost. But if Anivia has the blue, then you can't really do that because Anivia can just beat you with her ultimate. So she just throws down the AoE, hits you with the E, and then saves the stun for when Katarina's Shumpo is done. So you wait until the Shumpo is out, and then you stun her and just destroy her. And so being able to control that blue, it could be really scary in the mid lane.
One thing that XPK's done a really good job, though, is staying on par, if not slightly ahead of Anivia's farm pre this blue buff going on. Now Anivia's going to have that spike in her CS where she's going to be able to, of course, sit with that Glacial Storm on, farm up rates from either side, and she's going to get a slow CS advantage as well as zone out Katarina. But considering Katarina has gone back and gotten an early item, has a Hextech Revolver in addition to her boots and a couple wards to keep herself safe, if she farms up, maybe gets those boots too, or a little bit of another item, as Anivia's just sitting around and farming in the mid lane, Katarina, she's going to be active and she's going to roam.
Well, and Anivia, like you said, does have an advantage taking those rates, over the wall, and then with the strong jungler, you can take them confidently. So it seems they're basically just comfortable farming right now. The invisible stun coming out, actually. So Big Fat throwing it from behind the wall from the shadows, almost picking off XPK there. That would be a lot of damage really quickly and just instantly get rid of XPK in that lane. But CLG, they've been fine with playing this defensive game so far. They're very comfortable with it. They have great ward coverage, so all across the map, we see wards. They actually warded a pink ward by their race because Chauster, he doesn't want to ever allow them to have vision of himself. Like, that's one thing we've seen. He wants to keep it a secret. There's N-rated, the Ezreal ult, the flash out, but the teleport in from Soaz. He gets the kick back. Loco is going to go down. First blood to Fnatic. A really quick play. Now they can take the dragon off of the back of that, and that's a really aggressive play from Fnatic.
And that's actually a brilliant play because they were able to nuke down Nunu in enough time that Hotshot GG used to stand united in that fight. He didn't even teleport down, so they're not able to turn that around. They know stand united is down. There's no way that CLG can really try to contest this dragon with only 2 or 3 minutes.
Well, Chauster actually using his ghost, so wanted to see if he could maybe get in there, but didn't want to tempt it. It was a little bit too high. If it was low, then he could have ghosted in, just ulted, stolen it, and backed out. But he didn't want to have to sit around for too long, and the ghost would have ended, so he doesn't go for it. And that switches the gold lead into Fnatic's favor. So 700, 800 gold lead. Really impressive play from Fnatic, and they need to take an advantage early on in order to bring themselves into this game and try and take advantage of CLG.
And that is the weakness that we talked about earlier.
Oh, no. Big Fat taking it. That's like always the best thing ever in the mid-war is stealing the Wraith. Like, it's a small advantage, but it builds up over time, and you just feel like such a man to be able to steal it.
Well, you take that big Wraith, it's what, about 39, 40 gold or so that's about 2 minions. But Cyanide actually going to get jumped on in his own jungle. Your Hotshot and Chauster being proactive themselves. Good wall from Big Fat LP, makes the escape path from the XPK have to go through Chauster and Hotshot. However, he is going to use the flash, and he'll get away safely. Yeah,
Cho'Gath, Cyanide was just barely able to smite take that for himself, not steal it, but it was very quick, like really quick play from CLG. I thought it was going to work out, but Cyanide, how fast is that reaction time to be able to avoid that taunt? That was insane. The undertow missing on XPK, they're just going to zone him off of the tower here. They have a lot of damage if they can hit it, and so they just back off now. Cyanide going to help them hold this lane, but it's doing some damage, and XPK is in a dangerous spot here, and you see, Chauster just constantly looking for opportunities in that jungle. Cyanide able to control, though, and, that's one of Cho'Gath's strengths, is that control.
Had he been able to land that undertow, XPK had already burned the flash, so he's going to have to Shumpo away. They would have potentially gotten a kill underneath that tower. But one thing I want to point out, Chauster already with that Oracle's Elixir on him, he's going to be running around the map denying vision from Fnatic, making them want to play a little bit more passive rather than being aggressive, or having them to have to group up and try to push down those towers in order to clear out some space between them and CLG so they can effectively ward it out. Chauster having just free roam over the map to clear out those wards. However, as you mentioned before, with Anivia with the blue buff on, that's kind of what CLG wants them to do, to group up, stall, waste their time, and let double lift farm from that bottom lane.
Well, and it's interesting, we've seen a serious lack of wards, from Fnatic, and now Chauster has the Oracle, so that'll continue. We see a couple wards dropping down there, but Cho'Gath, he's so tanky in the jungle that, as long as they don't have to worry with ganks, if Chauster goes for an invade, Cho'Gath can tank long enough that he knows the rest of his team can get into him. There's the taunt from Hotshot, the knockback from Soaz trying to get himself out of there. He actually, does he have a ward? He has a ward, but he used his shield, so it's going to be a long route. Katarina coming up to help him out, but Anivia, they could be pinched here.
Looks like Lee Sin's going to go back in. Chauster taking some damage. Hotshot actually kind of low. Is he going to be able to get a taunt off? Anivia is coming up, but no taunt from Hotshot just yet. Chauster's going to be forced out of that lane. Now Big Fat LP actually walking in the middle of everybody. There's a stand united. He's going to be using it as a tank. And then meanwhile, Reckless wanted to pick up a kill on Loco on the bottom lane. XPK dropping really low. Hotshot's going to be able to get the kill there. Barely getting away as it looks like it was ticking down from Katarina. Now Big Fat LP gets the critical strike onto Soaz from that frostbite, but he is barely going to live.
Yeah, so really nice exchange there. In particular, Shen ulting onto Anivia, and that was a really smart play from Hotshot because he knew that Anivia would single-handedly win that fight, and the only way that he was going to go down, and like being stationary as Shen, it kind of sucks, but the only way he was going to go down was if Katarina just started ulting on him, and that would open up Big Fat to get a perfect stun on him. So it enabled them to actually pick up that kill into Katarina. We see, though, the bot lane has worked out very well for Fnatic, so we're kind of wondering how the aggression would work. It's been perfect. You know, N-Rated's been able to pick up some kills. Reckless is 1-0 right now, and N-Rated's got one of them as well. But Cyanide coming down, they're able to combo and have enough CC to pick up Loco Doco, and once they saw Olaf in that top lane, they knew they could just dive for that kill and didn't have to worry about any repercussions.
We wondered about this in picks and bans too. Was Fnatic's focus going to be on that bottom lane? And by taking that tower in the bottom lane before any other ones, I'd have to say yes, it is. It's letting Reckless stay relatively on par with the CS of Double Lip, so he's going to be in a much better position than he was during these team fight phases than last game. Kog'Maw had basically no farm on him compared to Caitlyn last game, and he had a Phantom Dancer by the time that Caitlyn had an Infinity Edge and a Phantom Dancer of her own. So now that Reckless has actually gotten a little bit of stable footing underneath him, he has a kill and an assist where Caitlyn doesn't, so that's making up for a bit of the CS difference. If Fnatic wants to get into one of those mid-game team fights, Ezreal will at least be close in damage to Caitlyn, if not above it, because weak mid-game is Caitlyn's weakest spot.
Yeah, I mean, the AoE from Ezreal, he has a nice mix of magic damage as well. So it's that magic damage that is really going to help him out. He's going to be very safe. CLG, they don't have a way of threatening Ezreal in that back line. They have a very defensive-oriented team in team fights that's going to try and be reflexive. They're going to try and back away from Fnatic and force Fnatic into bad situations. But Ezreal, he doesn't have to worry about that. He doesn't, you know, there's going to be no threat on him, and that could be really dangerous if he gets off to a good start. Cho'Gath is still sitting bottom, but Chauster's here as well. Now, if either of them lose this Oracles, this could be huge. But there's the Zenith Blade trying to get in on Double Lift. He's just barely out of range of the Rupture, and now they can maybe turn this around with the red buff on Double Lift.
Got to be careful though. N-Rated still has his ultimate, so if CLG wants to try to engage this, they're going to have to be wary of the counter initiation coming back in from Fnatic. Cyanide gets extremely low though. Ezreal's true shot goes across. They're trying to go on the double lift. There's the ultimate coming in, but Loco Doco actually going to chase down the very low Cyanide. Reckless will reprise that by getting a kill on Loco Doco, but Big Fat LP and Expected coming in for the mid lane.
The wall, the flash, can he get it? Yes! He gets Big Fat. Big Fat picking up the kill. There's the teleport in as well on Lee Sin. So Big Fat, is he actually going to go down? He doesn't have a flash or anything, but Chauster coming in trying to help him, and Double Lift is here with this red buff as well to turn it around.
They got
CLG,
the damage.
they're winning this exchange. There's the ultimate. They pick up a couple of kills. 4-3, a great turn. Now the score, a great turnaround from CLG.
That was actually very, very well executed by both sides of the fight in that one. XPK and Big Fat LP knowing they had to roam down.
Yeah.
The Leona saving the ultimate until they were able to try to go back in on Double Lift, but because Chester had the Ragnarok available, because Loco Doco was able to chase down Cyanide, and Cyanide took way too much damage in the beginning, it was very well coordinated.
It was perfect positioning from CLG, and I also want to point out the teleport canceled by Hotshot. So as he used his teleport to get down there, and Hotshot, he was able to get in range. I would look at that, replay, but we'll keep going. Keyboard again, not working. But so nice play from Hotshot that really helped in that bot lane. But they lost the Oracles on Cho'Gath, and it all started off with Chauster having perfect positioning in the jungle. He knew exactly what Fnatic was up to. He's like, hey, I bet they're going to send Cho'Gath down here. I'm going to be ready for it. Fnatic is able to control that dragon, so that's a really big pickup for him. But Soaz dropping a ward, shielding over to get out of there, almost walking right into the Lion's Den. And CLG just being reflexive in that fight and then turning it around on Fnatic. Losing that Oracles is just such a huge issue for Fnatic, but they still have a 1k gold lead and 2-0 on Ezreal, so he's still doing fine.
By retaining control of the dragon there, even though they're going to lose out on the ward war, now that they have no Oracles elixir being active on side, and actually buying one now so they can kind of get this back. That dragon bought them a little bit of time. It did buy them basically half of that Oracle's elixir as well. Yeah. So that's going to be something that Cyanide's very thankful for. So he's gone back, picked that up. Now that they've gotten the dragon down, they have taken still a slight gold advantage. Only a couple hundred gold now, maybe about 1,000 or so once they get back into the lanes and start farming up. But they're going to be able to counter ward the counter warding, if that makes sense. They're going to be able to have the same vision denial on CLG.NA that CLG is going to be putting onto Fnatic, which will put them at more even ground once again. And we're probably not going to see anything until maybe a team fight like right here.
N-Rated jumping in, trying to get on Chaucer. There's the Shen ult, actually. He's just going to dive right at the enemy team. The taunt from Hotshot as well. Katarina's on the other side, but she's being zoned off, so she can't join the fight. There's the second kill going down, and CLG with the perfect grouping 4v5, they're able to grab that. So they want to control these buffs, they want to control these objectives, and it was just the perfect play from CLG.
That canceled teleport earlier from Hotshot onto Soaz is really coming back to haunt Fnatic because they wanted to fight that one. They didn't realize that Shen was going to be able to teleport into the fight, forgot the fact maybe that Soaz wasn't being able to come in there. They had no wards out for him to teleport to anyway, so it would have been a very long walk regardless of the fact. But CLG able to turn that one around into a 4v5. Soaz able to put some pressure down on the top lane, but Double Lift and Locodoco going to take out that bottom lane tower. They've taken away the blue buff from Fnatic, so they've gotten some control in their jungle. Most importantly, they have that forward ward, and they were able to establish even more presence on this map.
But at the same time, Cyanide, he has his oracles still. Like you said, he bought it immediately after buying earlier, and they're keeping the gold even. So it's only a 400 gold deficit right now because Soaz was able to take down that top turret. So every time that CLG takes something, Fnatic hits them back. And that keeping themselves even in this game is absolutely huge. Katarina hasn't yet popped yet. She's looking for her opportunity, but she has 150 CS, which means that she's going to be ready for it. She's going to have a lot of damage coming into this mid-game fights if they can find those opportunities.
Surprisingly, Big Fat LP's Anivia has been roaming more than Xpeke's Katarina has, or at least the same amount, because he just keeps following his lane whenever Katarina goes missing. And I think that's one of the things that's really keeping Xpeke from being that, hey, Katarina's missing from the mid lane, where is she? Oh, she's getting a triple kill on bottom lane that we're used to seeing from some of these other teams. You mentioned it before, GG and Chauster, they've been roaming around a lot together recently. GG's just been doing a better job of being active on the map, whether it's calling the fact that Katarina was missing at that level 2 red buff contesting, or the fact that he's following her wherever she's going to be going. That Anivia is turned into a roaming wall that's been completely knocking away Katarina's path to entry into these team fights.
And this is actually something that I want to point out, which is kind of neat, having the chat there, but just noticing CLG, they just bought all of these items at the same time, so they just spent their gold. Shirelia's Infinity Edge and Athene's. So those are all 3 really nice items for all of their respective guys. Ezreal as well has an Infinity Edge, but Katarina isn't yet deep into her item build because she had to get the Revolver to lane against Anivia. Otherwise the lane harass would be too strong. She needed that spell vamp, but that spell vamp, it's not really going to help her that much in team fights. She needs to get quick into her items like Haunting Guys and like Abyssal Scepter. And so the fact that CLG has finished their items all at the same time, it opens up a possibility where they could get a cool little timing fight and put a lot of pressure on Fnatic at this opportunity.
Not to mention the point that Hotshot Shen had gotten that Sunfire cape. It looks like Ace in the hole going down to Xpeke. Cyanide has to block that. And don't forget, Cyanide's Cho'Gath. We already ranted about how tanky it was in the previous game. So that Ace in the hole dealing almost half HP to Cyanide means that Double Lift is starting to deal a lot of damage.
Yeah, and they force them off the turret. They are very low. Anivia is just dealing a lot of damage to Katarina, and that Athene's gives her the cooldown reduction and everything that she needs. Haunting Guys now onto Katarina is definitely very significant as far as getting the damage output in fights, but it's going to be difficult because Katarina, she can't dive in, you know, when people are full. She needs to wait, bide her time, and then be a cleanup crew. And with how defensive and like reflexive CLG's team can be, that's gonna be tough for them to start fights. Like if they have a this forward just if Leona's trying to dive in and just make something happen, then Anivia can just wall her off, shut down any aggression, and they pick off Leona, and now all of a sudden everyone's still full life, and Katarina's like, I still don't know what to do.
The wall goes up and GG has to burn the flash though, as Soaz comes around from the backside. Double Lift gets a half HP already. True Shot Barrage goes across on the Locodoco. Enrated taking a bit of damage, but Chauster as well. He's going to have to back off from this, already at half HP. Good flash falls onto Xpeke. There's a taunt coming up from Hotshot. GG has to use a Shumpo defensively to his team over the wall, and CLG is going to stop this push from Fnatic.
Oh, Xpeke is very, very low. Ace in the hole is up, but hopefully going to get a body block, and Double if he can just leave it up for when they push down this turret. Soaz actually pushing up the top to try and put some pressure on CLG, but that fight, it was a great play from Soaz coming in from behind. There were only 3 members there, so they were able to take a little bit of an advantage, but you saw CLG get out of there. There's the ult coming out, Cyanide blocking for him. But they were able to just back off, and that was the reflexive nature of their team, that defensive nature. And it was really impressive play from Double Lift to survive even, using the net and the flash and, just backing off when it looked like he might have been caught out of position. So really nice turnaround from CLG. Very close though for Fnatic. I mean, you could tell they were itching to go, and that was almost the initiation that they needed.
It looked like CLG was grouping up for a timer on that blue buff, but maybe a little bit of mistiming there as they activated the vicious strikes and from Olaf and everything, and no blue buff was there to be found. So CLG decided to go back to their own lanes there. And one thing I want to point out is on the side of Fnatic, Reckless has stayed relatively on par with double lift this time. Both of them have acquired their Infinity Edge. Now Reckless actually a little bit ahead, getting his Zeal before Caitlyn's gone back to finish her second item. However, Caitlyn does have the Blood Boil on the side from Nuno, so she's not nearly as dependent on that item as Ezreal will be.
Yeah, but Ezreal has his passive, and I think a lot of people underestimate the attack speed that Ezreal gets. It's like 50% attack speed, so it's very significant. So he deals a little bit more damage than Caitlyn does, unless Caitlyn has the Blood Boil. I mean, she's going to have the Blood Boil, but he's going to be on par with her, and they don't have a means of shutting down Ezreal in fights. So it's going to be interesting to see. Both AD carries are in a really strong position in these team fights, and will be able to just constantly auto-attack and constantly deal damage. Caitlyn with her range, and Ezreal with his survivability.
Taking another look at the rundown of the items, you mentioned before how Katarina had to stop and get that Hextech Revolver for survivability before moving on to her other items into the later stages of the game. And I think that's really putting SPK in a difficult position now that we're in the team fighting phase. We're outside of the laning phase. Hextech Revolver is still a good item, and Katarina still has a lot of base damage, as you were touching upon last night when she was playing, but not the same kind of damage output or just big ticket name on the item like a Haunting Guise or a Hextech Revolver has compared to a Fiend's Unholy Grail or Needlessly Large Rod or Infinity Edge that CLG has been completing. And like you also mentioned, all these big ticket items from CLG being created for each other at the same exact time. A Wit's End now acquired from Shen, whereas on the side from Fnatic, they're getting them when they can, but it's starting to show like who's who in the team, who's going to have to actually try to carry this one, namely being Reckless on Ezreal as well as Soaz on Lee Sin with his Bloodthirster, rather than Xpeke's Katarina. They've done a really good job on CLG's side of just stopping that landslide from Katarina.
And Fnatic actually backing Big Fat off of this turret. Usually you'll see Anivia defend that, but dropping the turret very quickly. A little concerned because they weren't fully grouped. Didn't want to allow Enray to just get a hard engage, and that would potentially throw CLG behind. But losing the turret, definitely a really nice opportunity from Fnatic to get some of that map control back. But I want to go back to, you mentioned the Wit's End on Shen. And Wit's End along with the Sunfire Cape and then the Chain Vest as well. Katarina, she has an okay amount of poke, but not really significant, so he's going for a more armor-heavy build, which means that Lee Sin and Ezreal won't be able to take him down fast enough. And that means that they have a really tanky frontline body, and that prevents Katarina from coming into the fights, because they're not going to get those champions low. And it's also going to enable him to win most 1v1 matchups now if he decides to split push. So Shen is an incredible split pusher. Lee Sin is also very good, so I think Lee Sin, with the damage he has and the shield, he can actually counter out Shen in lane, so he can stop him there, and then he has the teleport as well. But that's going to be interesting to see what happens. Hotshot actually bought while Soaz is top, so Soaz, he's still kind of grouped with his team, being in the top lane if CLG decides to go for that Baron.
They still have a teleport available from Soaz as well as a Stand United from Hotshot and GG, so this 4v4 that might potentially be coming here around the mid lane or Baron pit is actually going to be a 5v5, just going to depend on if Soaz can get a ward down from his team he can teleport to, or if Hotshot GG is going to have that Stand United denied by bursting down a squishy target like Double Lift or like Loco Doco, who is still a very fragile support. But you mentioned Hotshot GG building armor, building a little bit tankier. He's going to let Chowster do stuff like this. Pick up a Shurelios wherever he go for an Aegis Legion, be utility this team needs to engage and disengage from these situations.
So that was a really nice play from Reckless. As they're running away, he's actually able to get some nice damage on the retreat into Olaf, and it prevented him from chasing quite as much. Hotshot, you see, he's just too tanky now. He's beating out Soaz in that lane, and he's going to be able to abuse him, and that's really scary because it means the rest of the team can set up in this mid, and Anivia and Caitlyn, they can siege those turrets. Then if they try and get in, Loco Doco's going to have the ult for the separation, but there's the cleanse, the flash out from Double Lift trying to get out of there, N-rated trying to force the fight, and CLG retreats beautifully along with the Shen ult coming in, but really close initiation. If they can get Double Lift while that cleanse is down, that can be really dangerous.
If they can try to pressure a Baron while Hotshot GG has split pushed off and no longer has Stand United, but Soaz has that teleport available, that could also be what Fnatic really needs to take it to CLG in this game. You were talking about how Soaz has the damage, but Hotshot is now out tanking him. Interesting choice that Soaz decided to recall and go back to defend that bottom lane tower rather than pushing forward onto that second top tier tower CLG.NA has and trying to just take it and then go back before Hotshot was actually able to go onto that bottom lane tower.
Well, and the issue is that second lane turret, it leaves him vulnerable because CLG sitting at the mid lane and Fnatic sitting at the mid lane, it means that CLG has a shorter path up to Lee Sin than Fnatic does. So if he's pushing too aggressively, then they can potentially chase him down, and it would force him to use his ultimate just to survive, which is not what you want to be doing. Chalister forced to use his ultimate there, so clearing out wards in the Baron pit, which is definitely pretty significant for them. There's a number that Fnatic have been dropping, so really great ward coverage. But Fnatic Cyanide forcing out that ultimate is definitely key for this next fight.
We saw both AD carries on either team, both acquiring Phantom Dancers at the exact same time. As Zeke's Herald, though, has been picked up
they're
for
neck
Loco
right now. Yeah.
Zeke's Herald is going to push Caitlyn maybe a little bit over the edge. It's also going to benefit, of course, Olaf, Shen. Is going to have a lot more survivability in fights as well, just a little bit of an extra oomph to their punch when they get into this ensuing. This is basically the point in time where we know a team fight's going to happen, and we know that's going to decide where the rest of the tide of this game kind of takes us. But this is the point in time where, can someone get caught at position? Can someone force someone into a bad engagement? When is the fight going to happen? Where is it going to happen? And is someone going to give up Baron because they don't think they can win it?
And one of the concerns, I think, for Fnatic is going to be Soaz, but a couple more hits. N-Rated actually hits the slow onto Chalister, trying to get out of there, but he doesn't have his ultimate. He goes down, loses that Oracles. It's now a 4v5 for Fnatic if they can continue to pursue this, or maybe even just force an objective now.
Kind of funny how as soon as we mentioned the fact that someone may get caught out, and that would be the kind of thing they need for someone to snowball into Baron, Chalister is the one that does actually get one to getting sniped away from that Leona ultimate. And if you're Fnatic, that worked out very, very well for them. Katarina actually going in here doing some damage on the Loco Doco. Flash Frost over the wall from Big Fat LP. Expeke actually has to burn the flash. Hotshot gets a good taunt, and the Anivia wall goes off. Cyanode's going to go down. That's a double kill for Double Lift. Loco Doco's going to get the Stand United, so he lives. Hotshot is extremely low. Loco will fall, but in the meantime, Big Fat LP is tearing the rest of Fnatic a new one, but Reckless going to take out Double Lip. That is a lot of damage gone from CLG. Flash away from Big Fat LP, but N-Rated is going to connect with the Zenith Blade. Can GG get away?
Well, the issue is Reckless was perfectly safe. He gets the stun. He gets some damage onto Soaz. It's not going to be enough. He's going to go down in that egg form. So really impressive fight from Fnatic. Double Lift came back in and used that range, bursting down Katarina really quickly. But like we said earlier, Ezreal is going to be perfectly safe in those fights, and so he was constantly auto-attacking, constantly dealing damage to CLG, and they had no way of stopping him. And so Double Lift, he kind of had to pull himself out of position in order to pick up some of those kills, which meant that as the fight progressed, he was at half health, and Ezreal was at full health. And so then when they turned to fight each other, Ezreal won that battle with his team, and then he was able to chase down the rest of them. So really impressive play from CLG, but at the same time, Double Lift, CLG, they were playing without Chalister there. So, Chalister was down, Fnatic forced the fight, and CLG did defend the Baron, and it's still an even gold game. So they lost their gold advantage that they had, but, they didn't lose the Baron. So it wasn't the biggest loss ever, but it does bring up questions to, if Fnatic can turn this around, and what happens if XPK doesn't die in the beginning of a fight and is able to get off a couple of combos.
Now it's getting a little bit scary for CLG. Reckless, he did actually get double kill on that fight. Altogether it was a 4-for-2 trade, counting Chalister falling a little bit earlier before that engagement. He also went back and just took the dragon out by himself. Double Lift, upon reviving, buys that Quicksilver Sash he loves so much. However, Reckless goes back, buys a Last Whisper. So Ezreal's going to start outclassing Caitlyn in some damage in these fights.
Yeah, unfortunately, no one's been going into armor really deep. There is an Aegis, but in the meantime, Fnatic, they're actually going for Baron, and CLG, they're not defending it. They are moving up now. Shen, he's going to try and check it, but it's going to be really close to see if they get there in time, and they do back off. Reckless getting out of there as CLG's clumping, but now N-Rated jumps in. They're going to force this fight. There's the teleport from Soaz.
Ragnarok popped by Chalister. He's getting extremely low, but Cyanide entering this fight at about half HP. Soaz will go in and be able to take out Chalister. Hotshot GG, very, very low despite how tanky Shen can be, but all of Fnatic is about half HP. Expect over the wall from Double Lift, dealing so much damage. Loco Doco in the middle of everyone. He is going to go down. Big Fat LP actually not even in this fight at all. He's been zoned out into the mid lane, and Fnatic are going to walk away from this one with their lives, but CLG still has prevented that Baron.
And it was interesting because the fight, Hotshot and Chalister, they were trying to force the fight on the Baron. Leona was right here. It meant that this wall separated CLG the entire fight. And so that was perfect for Double Lift because it meant that he was unscathed. He was able to just wear people down and not take any damage. But you saw everyone from Fnatic getting low and then not dying. Not an ideal for CLG, clearly. So, impressive fight for them. But then Fnatic, because of the positioning, they were able to come out ahead. And You know, it was a really great play from them, and the better play was them forcing Baron to begin with. So, you know, if they keep on manipulating CLG in this manner, that could be really dangerous.
You know, I thought it was going to be a bad fight for Fnatic because of how low Cyanide got from that Baron, but as you mentioned, that wall made it effectively a 4v5 because GG was not able to enter the fight whatsoever. Now Fnatic, they're clearing out those wards, they're going to go for this Baron. If CLG buys the bait, well, then they could potentially get separated from that wall again.
They're not coming up.
There's
They're not defending it.
Katarina and Leona actually are in the mid lane doing a good job of just keeping Olaf and Nunu at bay. Now the pings go down from CLG, but it's too late.
And now they're in a dangerous spot because going into that river there, it threatens N-Rated to get engaged. The slow, the wall, it does help them out a little bit there. They're actually turning back into him, but N-Rated, he gets the initiation he wants, and they have the Baron now. The Leona ult, it hits no one though, and Shen, he can teleport back in. He just uses it on Doublelift because he wants to make sure that Doublelift survives, but Leona is down. If they can continue to pursue, it's a 4v5.
Chester taking a brunt of the poke from Fnatic because he is in the front lines, about half HP, but Fnatic doing a good job of disengaging. Once that Leona ultimate is gone, Leona's actually been evaporated in that engagement as well, so now that Leona's gone, even though they have Baron buff, they know they don't want to engage in a 5v4 situation because CLG, even though they've died in a couple of team fights and they've let Fnatic get the Baron, they're not that far behind. As a team, that Baron was the thing that put Fnatic over the edge on what was relatively a really close gold lead. This tower is going to equalize the gold basically, so Fnatic knows they have the Baron, they've won a couple team fights, but CLG is still pretty much neck and neck with them. They've seen the itemization from Anivia and they've seen Doublelift. Now that Reckless is slowly getting ahead, now that Xpeke is being able to itemize a little bit better, Abyssal Scepter being picked up for him, starting to get his big ticket items, Chain Vest potentially going to be a Zanya's Hourglass coming up next. They know that they need this Baron to bide a little time before the next big engagement. Chalister here, he's going to get caught out again.
Oh, Chalister going down, trying to recall right at the Wolves rather than getting out of there, and that really hurts CLG at this point because Anivia can stall forever against a bush. Like, it's just so easy to do. However, Soaz, he can kick people out from behind, so he gives them that backline initiation that they want, and now with a 4v5, CLG has to be really careful because if Fnatic can force a fight, then CLG, they're going to lose an inhibitor. It could push it into a game loss here.
Yeah, Fnatic, I was saying, they wanted to waste a little bit of time and let them get that last big ticket item, or at least let them buy some time to get a gold advantage with the Baron buff. When it's a 4v5, you catch someone out, you don't have to. GG's doing a really good job here, walling off both Soaz and N-Rated, getting a lot of damage done. Doublelift going to get the Piltover Peacemaker across most of the team as well. Even though they get this middle tower here, they're not able to continue their push. They're going to have to wait a couple seconds for that Baron buff to heal them up before they decide another plan of attack.
Well, it was a great manipulation from Fnatic. By pushing multiple lanes, they're able to keep Anivia away from them and then drop the mid turret. Now they're going to be able to drop the top turret as well, so no defense from CLG in this situation. They're still going to be able to defend their base pretty effectively. It's going to be really difficult to take that, but 2 turrets off of that Baron is a really strong suit for them. CLG, though, they needed that last Whisper. There it goes onto Doublelift. We just saw some big item purchases onto Fnatic, and that would have made things very difficult in Doublelift, so they couldn't fight until that was done. He has it now. They can know that they're going to be strong in those team fight situations. And I think one of the scary things for Fnatic is going to be, how is Lee Sin going to keep himself relevant in this game? Because Lee Sin, he has great single target pickoff potential. He gives your team, some more survivability with his shields. You kind of poke in and out and try and grab someone. But CLG, if they play the front line effectively with Anivia and control that front line, then it could be kind of difficult for Soaz to get any damage out against CLG. He'd kind of sit back and put even more pressure on Reckless to perform.
The one thing is, too, he had barely any HP until this point.
Hotshot's caught. Hotshot, he taunts back, but I think he's still caught. N-Rated's going in behind the turret. It's going to be tough, but they might be able to get him.
Oh, he's actually got... Oh, he taunts through the unult, but he still will get stunned. He gets stunned once again as she goes into with Zenith Blue. Now N-Rated stuck behind a Nivea wall. Is he going to fall? Doublelift not able to get the last auto attack. GG will be the one to finish it off, though. Now Soaz going in deep. Hotshot's actually going to use a Stand United there to keep Doublelift alive. Ace in the hole going across to try to get Reckless, but Cyanide's going to body block that one, and CLG looking to defend this push here.
But look at Soaz on the side. He's actually looking to see if he can come in, pick someone off if they split, but CLG, that was the perfect fight for them. They knew Shen, he's very tanky, and Fnatic blew a lot trying to get him, using the Leona ultimate, using a couple of, using the Rupture and everything from Cho, and he didn't even die, and then Big Fat was able to come around, they pick off Leona, so that was a huge fight for them, and Doublelift just barely able to get enough damage before jumping out of there, so really impressive play, and that's the danger of CLG's team, is the fact that they can just instantly wall off and shut down a fight. and, you know, split off half of Fnatic.
Fnatic is going to be taking this Dragon into the later stages of the game. 53.4k to 50.6k. They have a slight 3k gold advantage, which is, to be honest, been probably one of the biggest leads we've seen this game, considering it's been so neck and neck. But CLG can easily turn that one around. They have the split pushing power, and they have, of course, the stalling power from Anivia. If CLG, though, the next Baron is probably going to be the next big fight, unless someone else gets caught, unless they think they can engage somebody in a favorable position for their team. This next Baron area is going to be really, really indicative of how the rest of the game is going to go. If CLG loses out in the next fight, they're going to continue to play this very passive, let's defend our towers, wait until we get a favorable engagement kind of style. If they're able to take the next team fight or get the Baron buff very securely, they're going to, like you said earlier in the game, use that Anivia ultimate offensively to push these lanes and start putting Fnatic on the defensive, where, to be completely honest, if you're going to be one of these two teams on the defensive, I like CLG's chances of stalling out a lot better than Fnatic's.
Well, and both of these teams have the damage now where they can easily drop down these turrets.
Ooh,
I mean,
Ezreal's just acquired a Guardian Angel.
Both bases are just at so much risk at this point in the game, so it's about who wins the next fight, really, is going to be able to push in if one of the 80 carries and someone else is still alive. But both of them, it's going to be really interesting to see. Soaz kicking Hotshot back. Now Hotshot split again. His teleport, it's not quite up yet, but Ezreal and Katarina coming down to slow him off, and he's not going to be able to retreat to his team this time, so he just straight out goes down. And that's a 60-second death timer. Fnatic's going to try and push in. Big Fat, he should be able to stall long enough, but it puts some pressure on him and threatens their base.
Well, Cyanide already down this bottom lane. 3 members of Fnatic kind of hovering around. They want to get that bottom tower as well as put pressure on CLG elsewhere so they can just secure it. They're trying to keep Big Fat LP away from it so he can't just put down the Glacial Storm and storm them off. However, they realize they don't see Anivia anywhere on the map. They're going to rotate elsewhere, try to see if they can clear out CLG's jungle, try to establish just more omnipresence on the map, clearing out wards, putting down more of their own before they decide to try to push anything else.
Oh, but in the meantime, while CLG is defending that bot, Fnatic, they're making their way up top, making sure they get the advantage here. So they have all the wards cleared out. They have a great ring of fire that CLG is going to have to go through with their wards across that Baron. And that's really dangerous for CLG. But Anivia is incredible at fighting in those river fights. Lee Sin kind of out of position if CLG tries to go in on it. But we'll see what he can do. He's pushing into their base, and he's going to be able to just kind of ward hop his way out of there, I think.
He does have the teleport available still, so he could potentially go in, but CLG might actually be trying to pincer him off, so as he's going to wisely back off. They
thought that maybe Soaz was baiting, and now that the Baron is up, they pop the Shurelya's. They try and make sure they get vision immediately, because otherwise they could lose that. Unfortunately, Loco Doco goes down, and Katarina's on the backside to try and force this fight.
That's an Oracle's Elixir gone as well. Doublelift getting almost evaporated by Expect. He has to use Zanya's Hourglass, flashes out of Big Fat LP's Glacial Storm, and all of CLG is so low. Fnatic almost certainly going to take this Baron.
And it's that vision advantage, because Fnatic was able to set up at the Baron before the fight happened. It forced Loco Doco into a situation where he would get himself caught out of position, and now losing this Baron, that's going to be brutal for CLG. They still have good burst, but it means they're not going to be able to poke down Fnatic very significantly, and Fnatic is making their way back in. It's a 6k gold lead for Fnatic now. Not quite as significant as it was earlier in the game, because everyone you see is very deep in their item builds, but it still, you know, has something of an effect. So at this point, so we'll see what's going to happen. So as he's down bot, though, he's going to be chasing to see if he can catch out Doublelift there with that ward, but he has the teleport, so he can split push and come up with his team.
Well, the thing is, too, actually, Hotshot's going to get a taunt as well as an Anivia wall going down, but he immediately has to flash back over there, realizing that Fnatic has a bit of an upper hand. Shurelya's reverie to re-engage this one. It looks like CLG's kind of getting disorganized in this point. Cyanide taking some pot shots from Doublelift, but still above half HP after 2 or 3 auto attacks. Leona Ultimate's going to turn this around, and Fnatic's re-engaging on this one.
Yeah, they jumped in. They got some quick AoE. XPK, he was able to get a couple of combos. Doublelift is way too low, but he's able to take down Cyanide. The Zenith Blade takes him down, though, and Reckless is going to chase down the rest of the team. There's a double kill. Big Fat, one more Mystic shot. He's going to get the triple kill once he knocks down this egg, unless his team takes it. So picking up the double kill in Leona, but they move in. They ace CLG with a big comeback for Fnatic. They're going to be able to take this inhibitor now, and that's a huge time before they respawn. I think they're going to be able to end this game. It's going to be very close, though. They should be able to take down this Nexus. Yes, there's no way that CLG is going to be able to get back in time.
And that was just, we watched in front of our eyes a maturity of Fnatic's playstyle. We saw them identify how important keeping vision and keeping an Oracle's Elixir on the map was going to be. This is indicative of the fact that when Cyanide lost his first one, they immediately went for Dragon, got the extra gold, and allowed him to buy another one. No matter what, whether it was N-rated or Cyanide, during that entire game, there was an Oracle's Elixir active on the side of Fnatic. This let them be aggressive. This let them, even though Katarina wasn't able to snowball her lane as effectively as they wanted to, she actually really wasn't a huge factor until those endgame team fights. It kept their team relatively safe. Yes, Katarina has 4 deaths on her. However, it let Ezreal carry the point of the game until Katarina came into that of her own just through pure farming. 321 CS. A Katarina there out-farmed a Nivea.
And 10-1-6 on Reckless. He kept even with double lift in that bottom lane, playing the Ezreal, and we were kind of wondering how it would work out, but the thing was, Ezreal was such a safe pick. He knew the team comp that CLG was building, and he knew they wouldn't have a means of engaging on him in the backline. He's just too safe of a champion, and so he was able to get out constant damage and, you know, out DPS Caitlyn in some situations, but really impressive play overall as a team. And then they had the quick initiation to be able to pick up kills, and that's what allowed Fnatic to, you know, come back in that, because CLG, it was a very even game, but you felt like CLG was going to start pushing potentially. They were going to start trying to take objectives from Fnatic, but Fnatic was able to counter it out with just massive aggression of their own, grabbing, you know, like you said, the great map awareness, great map control, wards everywhere after the start of the game. They didn't have many wards earlier on, but once the mid game hit, they always kept vision of CLG, and they were able to take that home. So we'll see what's going to happen in game number 3. That's a 1-1 series now.
It is. That's awesome. We get to go to the 3rd game of a best of 3, something we haven't done all too much at IPL this weekend.
Yeah, no, it hasn't been a lot. There's been a lot of 2-0s so far, even with impressive games. But we'll be right back, guys. We're going to go to a quick commercial break, and we'll be able to check out game number 3, CLG.NA versus Fnatic, and it is intense. It is coming right down to the wire between these two teams. Thanks for watching, guys. This is IPL 5.